Well, good afternoon if you're in the East Coast. If you're in one of those other time zones, it's good morning. And if you're watching this on the replay, it's good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is for you. So I want to thank you for joining us this week on the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network, which is always sponsored by the CBC Success Group. And today, just like every episode, we try to have a very exciting and very great interview with a person. And today is no exception. In fact, we're extremely pleased today because the person we have today is someone that you may have heard of. You may have even seen him perform before. And he's going to bring some real gold nuggets to the table today. And gold nuggets are what I say are those things. So if you're watching us, get out your paper, get out your pens, because today is going to be very worthwhile. Our guest today is a gentleman that I heard his name many years ago as he appeared in Charlotte in comedy clubs in a former life whenever he was known basically as Rizzo, but his name is Steve Rizzo. And every morning that he appeared in Charlotte, he was on a local syndicated radio show by the name of the John Boy and Billy Show. And he was probably the only act that was on every morning when he appeared. And I'll tell you a little more about him in just a minute. So, Brandy, what's your thoughts on our guest today, Rizzo?
Well, I had not heard of him, but of course I studied up on him prior to today. And I mean, I'm really excited. He comes with an extremely impressive resume of clients and shows that he's been on. And I think just today, with everything that we're going through, I think his sense of humor and optimism is going to be very valuable.
That's right. So, Cheryl, what's your thought on Steve Rizzo, our guest today?
Like you, I grew up knowing of him, never met him at that time, but you can actually tell how old we are by knowing this. And it was super back then, but he was a comedian at that time. And then he took his comedian and comedy and added it into the motivation that people so much need nowadays. So I think people are going to get a lot out of this one.
It's going to be extremely valuable. Steve has been the host of his own show on Showtime, on PBS. Brandy even said the list of people he has spoken to is extremely impressive when you look at this, when you look at the people that he has actually spoken to and inspired in his career. And so we're going to get to know Steve, a guy that was voted least likely to succeed whenever he went to school, but he certainly has done what nobody could see he could do. I met Steve through a coaching group I participate in, and I heard some of the wisdom and some of the ways that he approaches things. So stick around. We'll be right back with Mr. Rizzo today, and we'll get some gold nuggets. So get ready to shovel them in, folks. So good afternoon, Steve. You know, I haven't seen you in almost 12 hours because we were on a joint call last night and listening to some of your wisdom, because we both participate in a coaching group call every Thursday night with our friend Ken Walls and a lot of people from around the country and different things. It's a really interesting group. Like last night, we actually had a guy there that wanted to know how to build his cleaning business up and get better. So we got all kinds of people. So Steve, you've been a high school, you've been a teacher, you have been a comedian, and some years ago, you moved into the area of motivational speaking. At this point, you've authored numerous books, and we'll talk about some of those as we go through here. But how did you make that transition from comedy into motivational speakers and actually be named to the Hall of Fame of Speakers?
It's a good question. It started, I have to answer it really from the very beginning. It started with the negative labels that were bestowed upon me ever since I was a kid. And they became very toxic. In 8th grade, I was told by a guidance counselor in front of my mom and dad, I was only 14 years old, that I didn't have what it takes to go to college. And what I heard was I wasn't smart enough. And all I ever wanted to be was a teacher. The sad thing about this is that I believed them, and so did my mom and dad. As great as they were from the old school, as many parents were years ago. You know, they figured this guy's got to know what he's talking about. Look at his title, guidance counselor. If he doesn't know, who does? So not only did I let this idiot tell me what I wasn't going to do, I let him tell me what I was going to do. But when you're 14 years old, you don't think of this severity. You don't think of what that's going to do to you. And then in my senior class in high school, I was a custodian after school. It was a great job, and my area was to clean the guidance counselor's office, the administrative offices. And I saw a list that was going to be put in the yearbook. And on this list, I was on a list with about 12 other people, and I was going to be labeled as least likely to succeed. It never made it to the yearbook, but that's the way my peers viewed me. And I grant you, I did hang around with a very tough crowd and all that. But I realized as I got out of school and I went into my adult life that it was that type of negative labeling that molded the direction for a great part of my life. My philosophy was, don't try and you can't fail. And you don't have to deal with ridicule or someone telling you you're not good enough, smart enough, or worthy enough. And to cut and to make a very long story short, after 5 years after high school, when a lot of my friends were passing on from drug overdose and alcohol abuse and all that other stuff, my brother, who was 100% disabled from Vietnam War, took me by the hand and had me go to college with him just to sit and see what it's like to go to college. And I went for 2 weeks. And then one day he was taking me to the administrative offices in the college that we were going. And he said, I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm going to enroll you in college. And I said, no, I can't do it. I panicked. I literally panicked. I had tears in my eyes. I said, I won't be able to do this. And he said, I'm not asking you. He said, I'm telling you, and you're going to give it a try. He set up the whole curriculum. I went my first semester. I nailed it. I had to go for extra tutoring. I graduated with straight A's. And then I graduated with degrees in minor in psychology, a major in English and education. And I went back to the same school that I graduated from, and I became a counselor for kids with behavioral problems, and was an English teacher for 2 years. And as I was teaching English to pay off my student loans, I started playing music, my guitar, with a friend of mine, making a lot of money in the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. And I did that after school and on weekends. And we became pretty well known. And my friend passed away from a drug overdose, and I was by myself. And I was always funny in between my sets. I'm sorry if this is taking long, but I just think it's important to tell the whole thing. I always did these funny things in between sets. And people will always tell me you should do stand-up. So when he passed away, one day I was with my brother, my younger brother, and we're in the city, and we walked by Catch a Rising Star, which was really the premier comedy club in New York at the time. And it was audition night. And he said, why don't you do it? Just do it. I said, no way. There's no way I'm going up in front of people and make them laugh. And you had 7 minutes. I went in, I did 7 minutes, and I got a standing ovation. So that did something to me. That totally did something to me. And I started doing stand-up at night while I was teaching. And then 1 year I decided to quit the teaching business. Comedy clubs were opening all throughout the country. And I decided I was going to go for it. And I became really successful. And I thought I had all my negative labels under control, all those toxic labels. My opening acts, believe it or not, were Chris Rock. Jerry Seinfeld opened for me, Drew Cary, Rosie O'Donnell, Dennis Miller. This is before they were famous. And something started happening. I realized that my opening acts were getting the big breaks, the TV shows, the movie deals. And I kept wondering, why is an opportunity knocking on my door? And I came to the harsh realization that it was knocking on my door. I was just afraid to open it. And I realized I had an incredible fear of success and failure. So I'm talking about not being able to make up your mind. And I just said, I've got to do something about this. And I went on this quest. It took me years to do this, to better myself, to have a belief in myself, because everyone kept telling me that you're going to be the next one. And they believed in me. But if you don't believe in yourself, you're not going anywhere. So I went to Tony Robbins seminars. I went to spiritual retreats, and I read every self-help book you could think of. I fell asleep with headphones listening to affirmations, and through the years, a major transformation was taking place, and I had this incredible belief in myself. Ironically, that's when the entertainment industry was very interested in me, but something weird was happening. I really wasn't that interested in them anymore. And I kept saying, I want to get into this motivational thing somehow, some way, even though I didn't know anything about it. And it was at a Tony Robbins seminar, and I'm observing this man speaking to 4,000 people, and he's got total command of the audience. And I remember I was taking notes, and unknowingly I picked up my pen and I wrote, I can do this. And then I put the pen down, and then I picked it up again about 20 minutes later and said, I should do this. And then I picked it up again a little later and I wrote, screw this, I'm doing it. And that I still have that paper in my other office in a frame in glass over my desk. And I decided to become a motivational speaker. And it was the best move I ever made.
Fantastic. And, I'm going to turn this over to a young lady, and I don't think she was ever voted least likely to succeed. I might be wrong. She can clarify that for us. But at that point, you just described me so much there also, Steve. And to see this and hear this story of how you made this transition is unreal. So, Brandy, what would be the question? What would you ask Steve at this point?
Well, I guess I have to set the record straight. I guess maybe I've never shared that with you, Jerry, but the day before high school graduation, I did not know if they were going to let me graduate or not, because I was a C and D and F student. I went on to have a master's degree and have a successful life, but I was that same way. I think that my teachers thought that there was probably no hope for me. I still am not sure to this day if they didn't tweak something a little bit so that I could graduate just to get me out of there. But I think that that's a lot of entrepreneurs and successful people. I struggled with dyslexia, and honestly, I just wasn't interested in that material at that age. When I got into college, I loved the material. I had a 4.0, but it was interesting to me. I wanted to be there. I didn't want to be there in high school. So one of the things that you say is start each day with an unstoppable attitude to succeed, regardless of your circumstances. And we all know those people that, they've lost their husband, their mom, their sister, all in a span of 3 months, and they keep going. And then we know other people that just the cost of gas prices is enough to spin them into depression and send them to bed. Tell me a little bit more. How do you recommend that somebody go about that?
To start their day with an unstoppable attitude?
Yes.
It starts as soon as you open up your eyes to greet the day, because that's when you enter into consciousness. It is at that moment when you open up your eyes before you take the covers off, you have an incredible opportunity to steer your thoughts and your emotions in the direction that you want them to go, not in the direction they are so often telling you to go. People are very unaware that the attitude that they have when they wake up in the morning is pretty much going to be the attitude they take with them throughout the day. And they can't understand why they're not being successful, why they can't enjoy themselves, because they have this incredible unhealthy habit that they created. And I'll backtrack a little bit there. The most profound lesson that I ever learned in my entire life is what truly successful, happy, optimistic people know about life. They know without a doubt that they become what they think about day in and day out. The thoughts that they have about any challenge in their life would ultimately determine the quality of success and happiness they're going to have in regards to that challenge. Brandy, contrary to what most people think, it's really not the situation, as you were just talking about. It's not the event. It's not the circumstance that takes place in our lives that will determine how successful or how happy we're going to be. It's how we think about these things, because your thoughts have the incredible power to either minimize or maximize the effect that challenge has on you. And it's not your thoughts within themselves that gives them great power. It's what your thoughts create. So your thoughts will create the beliefs that you have about that particular challenge. And most people don't know this, that the beliefs you have about anything in your life are formulated over a period of time through a consistent way of thinking. Your thoughts create your beliefs. The beliefs you have about race, religion, sex, education, society, your neighborhood, beliefs you have about your family, the beliefs you have about politics, the beliefs you have about me in the short time that you're talking to me are formulated by a consistent way of thinking. So your thoughts create your beliefs. Those beliefs write the story of your life. And they write the story of your life because when those thoughts formulate beliefs, those beliefs will create the way that you feel on any given day. And now we're getting to something really powerful, because if you want to start your day with an unstoppable attitude to succeed, you have to make sure that you're feeling good during the process of whatever it is you're trying to achieve. This isn't only a key to your success and happiness, it's at the very core, because feeling good is the fuel that drives motivation and inspiration. I mean, think about it. It's impossible to stay motivated and to feel inspired throughout the day if you're harboring negative emotions or if you have a bad attitude during the process. The number one reason why people consistently fail in business and in life, it's like I said, it's not because of the situation, the event, or the circumstance. It's because somewhere along the way, positive momentum ceases, usually without the individual realizing what's happening. And the reason why positive momentum ceases is because the individual is focusing all of their energy on what isn't working and all the things that need to be done in order to get it to work, leaving no room at all in that brain of theirs for positive or optimistic thoughts to seep through that will help them to feel better, and they can deal with the next challenge that will inevitably follow. So when you wake up in the morning and you're feeling crappy, you've got to understand, well, what are you thinking to yourself? I mean, think about it. Most people wake up and the first thing they do, and they didn't even take the covers off, is they think of the grueling day they had the day before, the challenges, the fires that won't put out, the irate people that they had to deal with. I know people, probably you folks do this, or anyone that's watching and does this. You didn't even wake up. You still have the covers on. You're groggy. You're thinking about all the stuff that happened to you yesterday. And you have this, oh man, another day. And then you reach over to your nightstand and you grab your iPhone. Then you start looking at all the messages that you think need to be answered before you even leave the house. That is insane. That is insane. Then you start thinking about all the stuff that has to be done on that day. And you can't understand why, when you're waking up and you're getting out of bed, that your energy level is rock bottom, even after 3 cups of coffee, because you're not aware of what you're doing to yourself. You've created a dangerous habit. And those habits were formulated by your thought process that created your belief system that caused you to feel like crap. And that's what gives you the attitude. And that's what separates successful people and people that consistently keep going 5 steps back and failing. And for those who make this choice to enjoy themselves during the process, and those who feel that life is screwing them and there's no way that they can be happy.
So does Brandy, does that answer your question? Because what he just said, I think, this is what I translate that to. You got to set that stage when you get up.
Yeah.
Steve, when you were performing, you went on a stage and you depended someone to set the stage for you. You didn't have to go set up your own microphone. They had somebody to set that up.
Right.
Or if you were on TV shows, they got a whole crew of people setting the stage. And that's what you're saying. You got to set that personal mind stage every single morning. That's
that mental stage. Yes. Yes.
Setting that stage. So
exactly.
Cheryl, what would be, and I'm not sure, this is my wife, you know, I've heard stories all kinds of ways. Maybe she was predicted to be a failure. Maybe she was predicted to be success, but she's a very big success in my book. So Cheryl, what's your first question for our friend, Mr. Rizzo?
Well, to clarify, I'm the odd one. I was an A student. The bad thing about where I came from, I was the oddball because the rich people didn't like me because I was poor. The poor people didn't like me was because I was an A student. So I didn't have the bunch of close friends. And the good part about that is I didn't care. I could talk to anybody. So I was good. I could sit with the poorest of poor, the richest of rich. So I was lucky. And what you said about the morning, Jerry probably doesn't understand this, but I get up, I get a cup of coffee. My mind works 24 hours a day, but for just a period of time, I drink my cup of coffee with my puppies on my lap, And I do my best not to think anything about work. I want to think, if there's people I need to think about, I want to think about them. So that leads me to my question. And the question is, or the comment is, you talk a lot about managing the mind. Could you elaborate on that a lot?
Yeah. So, and we'll continue with what we were just all talking about. So the alternative to waking up in the morning and focusing on what isn't working, I ask people in my workshops and in my keynote speeches to get their shift together. And rather than when you wake up in the morning, rather than thinking about everything that has to be done, say to yourself, who do I have to be in order to get it done? What mindset do I have to create right now that could eventually become a habit, and I can continuously do this until it becomes a part of who I am? So rather than focusing on what isn't working, shift your focus and way of thinking to what is working, to the things that bring you joy. This takes 30 seconds to a minute and a half to do before you get out of bed. And everyone has the ability and the power to do this. If you say you don't, you're right. You just created your own reality. But you do. You do. And you focus on the things that put a smile on your face. What I'm asking people to do, and I know everyone has heard this in one way or another, and it is not, I thought it was, it's not a Pollyanna-ish type of, oh, okay, I'm going to be Mr. Positive. No, what you're doing is you're creating an attitude of gratitude. And I don't care who or what it is. Before you take the covers off, maybe you're thinking of the person lying next to you. Maybe you're thinking, like you just said, your puppies. Maybe you're thinking of the dog lying by the side of the bed. Maybe somebody did something nice for you yesterday. Maybe it's a particular goal that you achieved. Maybe you're having people over, or you're going out with friends on a Saturday evening to your favorite restaurant. The list goes on and on. Every one of us can think of that one little thing that can put a smile on their face and gradually make them feel better. Now, why do I want people to do this? Because an attitude of gratitude simply makes you feel good, period. And what is feeling good? As I said earlier, it's the fuel that drives motivation and inspiration. We go through the course of our lives and we allow people, situations, circumstances, and events to literally suck the energy right out of us because we don't know that we have what I call common sense strategies that can actually help us to focus on the things that we're grateful for and bless the things that life has given us rather than cursing what life is currently throwing at us. I told you I have a brother that's 100% disabled from the Vietnam War, the only man in medical history that ever survived that kind of wound. He did more than survive. He thrived. And maybe at another time we can have another meeting like this and I'll explain his whole story. But what he did with his life falls nothing short of miraculous because he refused to play the victim. He created the thought processes and said to himself, my life isn't anywhere near what I thought it was going to be. What can I do to turn this around? Who can I go to that can help me? What thoughts do I have to program in my brain to create this impeccable belief system to do what I need to do with what I have left? And that's another thing he did. He focused on what was working rather than cursing what life currently took away from him. We all have the power to do this. And when you see someone going through the hell that he went through, he was in St. Albans Naval Hospital for 7 months, went from 168 pounds to 94 pounds. And this was back in 1969. And right now, at this point in his life, I take care of him a lot. He only lives 7 minutes from me. His wounds are starting to consume him. And he's on kidney dialysis for the rest of his life. And I just picked him up from the hospital yesterday. He had pneumonia. Never complains. Never complains. I mean, he has his moments, trust me, but he's a testament for anyone who feels that their life isn't working at all, because he's the one that's in control of his thoughts and his belief system. We all have the power to do that. He has an incredible warped sense of humor too, which really helps. So,
Steve, your background as a comedian and being able to use that talent in speaking, to me, is a phenomenal technique. It's a phenomenal skill, because I firmly believe that a person is much more receptive to ideas and concepts when they're smiling versus when they're frowning.
Yep.
It's a completely different thing. So with this background in humor, how does humor help someone to be a leader of others? How does humor help you excite yourself? When you're talking about getting up in the morning, setting the stage, It's part of this to look at things from a humorous standpoint where you're not serious all the time. So tell me how humor comes into success.
Well, I discovered what I call my humor being. Everyone on this planet has a humor being within them. Everyone. Everyone. Unfortunately, most people go their entire lives never knowing they have this power. Your humor being is of your higher nature. It's a part of you that brings out the best in you when times get really tough. What your humor being can give you more than anything else is peace of mind and emotional stability. Jerry, when I did stand up, and this was one of the things that really pushed me into getting into the motivational business, because I just didn't look at myself as someone that was making people laugh. It was a very weird state that I would go into when I was on that platform. It could be 1,000 or 2,000 people in the audience. And there I am making them laugh. And I'm doing it. I'm in the zone. But a part of me is thinking, wow, there are people in this audience right now who are experiencing major difficulties in their lives. Maybe they're going through a divorce. Maybe they're having financial difficulties. Maybe they or a loved one is inflicted with some kind of illness. But I kept thinking, for that hour that I'm on stage, their challenges and problems, whatever they were, didn't own them. Why? Because they simply allowed themselves to take time out to laugh. Laughter is the pit stop in the rat race of life, and that it gives you enough emotional fuel and repairs to get back into the race again. But the initiative and the proficiency by which we allow ourselves to laugh comes from what I call your humor being. The more you use it, the more it becomes a part of who you are. It's the great bounce back factor. When my brother Michael was in the hospital, it was his warped sense of humor that helped him to bounce back. And till this day, it helps him to bounce back. You talk to any successful person and they will tell you that, that ability to laugh. And it's not necessarily that you have to be the comedian and make a joke or say something funny. No, that's not what's important. What's important is for you to see the funny within the things that are around you every day. And it may not be initially. If you're upset that your car couldn't start, and that's something to really be upset. Maybe it's a brand new car and you just couldn't make it to work because you couldn't get it right, and it did. Most people take that with them the entire day. And even though something funny happened to them, or they saw something funny happen to someone else, they will not allow themselves that freedom to laugh, because they don't realize that laughter nips negative thought patterns in the bud before emotional havoc blossoms. And they get caught up on that one thing that happened to them. And what they do is they'll tell everybody they possibly can. Oh, do you hear what happened to me yesterday? My car didn't start. Oh, a brand new car. I couldn't believe it. And they keep telling that and reliving the same story, failing to see the other aspects of life that can lift their spirit and bring them joy.
And that's such a good, it's kind of like sometimes, on if you know who Jeff Foxworthy is known. Somebody asked Jeff one day, says, where do you get your content from? Where do you get this from? He said, I just go to family reunions. He just watches what's happening in the world around him.
Yep.
And that's what you did as a comedian. Whenever you came to Charlotte, I will guarantee you that you had a joke about Gastonia whenever you came to Charlotte, because that's kind of the joke area of Charlotte is Gastonia. And every comedian did. So, but it's like I said, being able to add humor in, that's something that I think is very unique, and it is a skill that we all need to learn to use.
Oh, absolutely. But unfortunately, we have become so politically correct that we are stifling our laughter genes, our humor genes. You have people now walking into comedy clubs and theaters, and they're just waiting. They don't come in just one or two. There's groups of them now, and they'll start yelling when a comedian starts bringing up a premise. When they start bringing up a premise and it's getting to them, they won't even let the comedian finish that. But that's being stopped now, as I said to you earlier. But people need to understand that laughter is one of the greatest gifts that God ever gave us, without a doubt. And there's a difference between laughing at something that's serious and allowing yourself to laugh off the fear or the negative connotation of the subject matter. When you could find a subject matter that's drop dead serious, and you could find some kind of humor in it in the midst of it, it's healing, because it exposes that negative connotation and it pushes you into a zone where you can look at this negative connotation instead of fearing it and running away from it. And when you laugh at it, it's like Mark Twain said, not even fear can stand against the assault of laughter. And I'll give you a perfect example. I know the three of you have seen the sitcom MASH, right? The TV show. Now, how many times have you seen Alan Alda, who plays the part of Hawkeye? He's in the operating room. His hands are in sight, some kid's insides, blood splurting all over the place. There's no medical supplies left. Bodies are being brought in by the dozens. Sometimes bombs are bursting all around them. And what is he doing in the middle of all this? He's cracking jokes. But by cracking jokes, he's not negating the seriousness of the subject matter, is he? No. He just knows that his humor being is the only saving grace in a place where there seems to be so little hope. If anything, his ability to laugh is giving him the courage to do what needs to be done, which is to save lives. Now, I know some people may be thinking, well, you know, Steve, that's a good analogy, but it's only a TV show. But very few people know that MASH was taken from the memoirs from a real doctor who was in the MASH unit, where he claims that it was their sense of humor, their ability to laugh, which is why that show always had laughter in the midst of tragedy times. Their ability to laugh helped them to bounce back and to do what needed to be done, which is to save lives.
Which would have driven you crazy to watch this.
Absolutely.
And Randy, you know, it's like Randy being a nurse. And I was recently talking to a daughter of a client, and Brandy, so you know, she's going through nurses training to get her master's and all this right now. And I was talking to her at dinner 2 days ago, and it was about how do you face this challenge. I even talked about Bo, the grandchild of Bob, and how they had the honor walk where this child had passed away, and then they were donating the organs, and hospitals have an honor walk when they take this person to surgical units to remove their organs and cut life support. So yeah, you know, you've got to have something to bring that sanity. So Brandy, what's your next question for Steve? I'm sure this is right up your alley, what he's talking about today.
Well, in your Motivate This book, you talk about balancing your life and recharging your inner battery. What does that look like for you in your life?
Balancing your, I have something, because before the pandemic, I was flying 200, 300,000 miles a year. And I was in sometimes 3 cities in 5 days. And usually they were in different time zones. But I always manage. I had a saying that, and this saying was a wake-up call for me. Most people, especially high achievers, get so caught up in trying to make a living that they forget what it's like to live. And there's always this mindset about having more and wanting more. And, you know, Jerry, they were talking about that last night on that coaching show that we were on. And I didn't agree with a lot of that. How much you want to make money, that's great, but how far do you have to go with it? How much do you need? And are you negating sacred parts of yourself? So I made a commitment to myself, and I created something that I call my time. And whenever I'm in a city that I know I'm going to enjoy, rather than just do the speech and then get on a plane and get the heck out of there, if I have an extra day, I will ask the client to make the reservation for me, and I'll pay for that extra day, and I'll tour that town, that city, and I'll have lunch somewhere by myself. And I love being by myself. And I will do things. I'll walk through a historical neighborhood, or maybe I'll just stay in my hotel room, and I'll always have something to read, or an old movie that I might want to watch on the Turner Classic Movie Channel, whatever it is. These are the things that nourish my soul. These are the things that complete me as a person. And they're part of the ingredients in my life that make up who Stephen Francis Rizzo really is. Most people don't know that they can do that, or that they should do that. And I know a lot of people, and they're up there in their age, and they looks like they've achieved everything in their life. But when you talk to them, so many of them has said to me, I wish I would have spent more time with my family. I wish I would have seen my son play baseball, or my daughter on the dance recital. And then my response would be to them just to hear more from them. Well, but you needed to do this to get to where you are. There's a sacrifice. And then they thought about it and they go, in hindsight, I didn't have to do it all. I'm paraphrasing here, but that in one way or another, most of them would say that. I study people. That's what I do. And I absorb that. And I'll go, well, what do you mean you didn't have to? Well, I was so into feeding the ego and being the best and the best and the best that I thought if I just didn't take that opportunity and that opportunity, I would lose that status. But now when I look back and I see what I missed, it's not that some of them even had a major regret. It's just that in the back of their mind, they wish they would have been there more often and allowed themselves to appreciate other aspects of their lives. That's all.
Steve, I want to share something with you. And I think this is going to really intrigue you. But when Cheryl and I were going through speaker training, we were trained by Larry Winget and Suzanne Evans and went through a year of training with them. And one of the things that Larry taught was that as a speaker, you had to develop a point of view. And Cheryl got hers really quick. It took me a while to do this. So this is a book that Cheryl wrote back then, and I hope you can read the title. But what it says is, and this is the title, it's a little mini book, but it says, I'm glad I did. Do what it takes not to say I should have. Huh. And that's her point of view right there. So Cheryl, what would be your next question for Steve? But as he talked about that, I looked over to my left, and that book that you signed for me sits right to the left of my desk all the time. And it just came up. I just thought Steve, that reinforced what you
That's a great title for a book. That is the subtitle, because the title of a book always affects the brain. The subtitle affects the heart.
There you go. So Cheryl, we just complimented you on your book and your point of view. So what's the next question you have for my friend Steve?
Well, I want to say, first of all, I feel like I've walked some of the same steps that Steve does. A lot of what he's saying kind of hits home. And basically, I lived by that when I was a little girl. I lived through it taking care of parents, and I still live through it today. But you said something, and I don't remember where I heard it, but it was in one of the things I was looking at of yours, where you were talking about enjoy the process.
Ooh.
Now, the way I put that is enjoy the journey.
Same thing.
It's not like when you get where you're going. Most people, the only thing they see is where they're going. I love to see and in real life, I love to see the trees, the houses, and everything till I get there, not just my final destination. What's your take?
It's a key. It's in my new book, Conversations with Bob. Listen, Cheryl, if as I said earlier, if feeling good is the fuel that drives motivation and inspiration, then enjoyment shifts motivation and inspiration into high gear. But unfortunately, today, people put enjoyment by the wayside, especially high achievers, especially in this country, because they create a mindset that says, you know what? I'll enjoy myself when I achieve the goal. I'll enjoy myself when I get to where I want to go. Right now, there are too many challenges taking place in my life, right, man? There's too many things happening. When I get the respect and appreciation that I deserve, and when I make enough money, and when things calm down and things start going the way I want them to go, and when things stop changing and evolving to the way I don't want it to go, it's just not going to work. But when things happen my way, that's when I'm going to enjoy myself, and I won't do it 1 minute sooner. Do you have any idea what you're doing when you say things like this to yourself? Number one, you're putting your happiness on hold. You're actually convincing yourself that your happiness is dependent upon something that has to take place at some point in the future. That is insane. It's insane. It's insane because happiness will always be steps ahead of you. It'll never happen. The point is the time to enjoy yourself, people, is in the now, in the moment of whatever it is you're trying to achieve. Whether you're home cleaning the garage, taking the dogs for a walk, you're food shopping, or you're in your office and you're trying to kick it up a couple of notches in your business, it is your right to enjoy yourself. It is your right to do it. The biggest disease in this country is unhappiness. And before I even get into that, studies have shown that people who make a conscious choice every day to enjoy themselves during the process of whatever it is they're trying to achieve are more creative, they're more productive, they're able to bounce back a lot faster from life's challenges, and they're able to find solutions to problems a lot quicker. Having said that, I would wager any amount of money that most, if not all of the people that are listening right now, nowhere when you're writing out your plans and your goals for the future, short-term, long-term, or even writing out a list of things that need to be done that day, nowhere do you ever include enjoying yourself. That blows me away. Instead, you create that dangerous mindset that I just said to. And today, I think the biggest disease, even worse than the pandemic, is unhappiness. In a country where we shouldn't have that, more people are unhappy because they keep focusing on what isn't working and what they don't have. And you don't realize that your subconscious, because this is the culprit, your subconscious runs 97% of your life. I call your subconscious the genie of your soul. Whatever you say to it, it will say, your wish is my command. So, as an example, and many of us do this, if it's the beginning of the week and you're having a tough week at work and you start that, some people call negative self-talk, I call it self-curse talk because you're casting a spell on your life. And if you're saying things to yourself, oh man, I can't believe this, we're going to go through this again. Why are they putting this all on my back? Why am I the only one that ever does anything? You know what? This is going to be one of those weeks when the weekend gets here. That's when I'm going to enjoy myself. There's no way I'm going to be able to enjoy myself here. I got to do this crap again and get it done. So when the weekend gets here, that's when I'm going to enjoy myself. And the genie of your soul is going, okay, your wish is my command. If you want to wait for the weekend to get here for you to be happy, I could wait. So then people say in my workshops, well, won't I finally be happy when the weekend gets here? I'll say no. And here's why. Because that mindset will still be with you. That mindset that you created. So now the weekend will be there. And I guarantee you, you will look for something else that's keeping you from enjoying yourself on the weekend. Maybe you're saying, if I can just get the kids the hell out of the house just for one day, maybe I can have some peace and quiet. If they can just keep that dog next door mouth shut, maybe I can enjoy myself. Why is it that every time I want to take a nap or if I want to relax on my hammock, the leaf blowers and the lawnmowers got to be going all over the neighborhood? You'll always find something. And happiness will always be eluding you. It'll always be somewhere in the future. It'll never happen. It's the biggest disease. We do this to ourselves. The time to be happy is in the now. You do that by focusing on what's working rather than fixating what isn't working. Bless the things that life has given you. Find the humor in those situations that are ticking you off. We all have these strategies. It's just that we allow life to suck the energy right out of us. And it's amazing. And it's especially with high achievers. People, major high achievers, I don't have time to be happy. You can't afford not to. When I give this little thing here that I just gave you to CEOs, I speak to CEOs from Fortune 100 companies, you could actually see them loosening their collars because they're going, how the hell, he's talking to me. How does he know this? Because they're indicative of what I'm saying. They are the ones that have this mindset. It's amazing.
So Cheryl, you can use that. What he just said, I think you could use in your DISC assessment up there. And maybe that's something you need to look at whenever you're assessing personalities. Do you focus on negative or do you focus on positive?
Yep.
The good thing about doing DISC assessing, it doesn't take long to figure that out. A couple sentences and you know what boat they're riding.
Yeah. And when I talked about her talent, she's also a mind reader, Steve, so you'll know. So it's a really unique skill she has. Okay. Now, you've written a lot of books. I compliment on you. I said Cheryl and I have both authored books. Randy's participated in one, and we're going to get her to write another one before long. I just stay on her butt on this one. But your most recent was Conversations with Bob. So what brought this about? Because I'm about halfway through reading Conversations with Bob. What drove you to this, and what's the message of Conversations with Bob, Steve?
This book is the reason why I was put on this planet. I'm positive of that. It took me 7 years to write. It's a dialogue between two characters, Bob and Bernie. Bob is God. How God gets the name Bob, you're going to have to read the book to find out. I say it took me 7 years to write because every time I thought I was finished, Bob said, "No, you're not." And I started writing it at the lowest point in my life. And I was in the middle of a divorce. That was my decision. It was devastating. As I said to a friend of mine, sometimes doing the right thing could be the most painful thing you can possibly do. And it took control of me. And it wasn't just that. And I shared with you folks my negative labels. They're always with you. They're always there, always. And all it takes is one train of thought to unleash them. And they'll come out with a vengeance with more intensity. And that's what happened with this divorce. The negative labels came out. And I felt like a hypocritical, because there I am speaking to people and telling them how to control their lives. And I was losing control of mine. So I woke up one morning and I said to my wife, I don't know where this came. Well, I do know where it came from now, but then I didn't. It was Bob speaking to me. I woke up in the morning and I said to her, I'm moving to California. And I live on Long Island. And she looked at me and she said, "What's wrong with you? You need to see somebody." And I said, "I don't know why I'm going there. I just know I have to go there." And I took me a couple of weeks. I called some friends. They helped me set up an apartment in Marina del Rey, a wonderful area in California. I stayed there for almost 2 years. And I knew I was going there to face my demons, whatever they were. And it was one morning. I exercise every day, always did since I was 13 years old. And I was working at a 24-hour gym near Venice Beach. And about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, I would walk on Venice Beach by myself, which is not a safe thing to do. And I remember that's when I lost it. I mean, totally. I could actually say I know what it's like to go out of my mind, because I went out of my mind. And I was cursing at God. I mean, I was just, I dare you, come down, talk to me, and blah, 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 blah. And as it was subsiding, if anyone would have heard me, they would have dialed 911. There's a crazy man. I swear. It was insane. And I was exhausted. And I remember saying to myself, what the hell is wrong with me? And what the hell am I doing here? And I took another step and I heard something from within me say, you know what's wrong and you know why you're here. You're just way too caught up in your own drama to find the answer. And I went, what? And I ran to my car and I went to my apartment in Marina del Rey. I took up my laptop and took a pen and a pad, because that's how I write. And I asked another question and another answer came. Then another question, then another answer came. And I was there for like 5 hours and I realized I'm talking to the God part of myself. I knew I was talking to God. I knew it. And the answer was just, I wasn't even thinking, it was just coming. I was exhausted by that and I fell asleep and I woke up the next day and I looked and I don't remember. I looked at what I wrote and I don't remember writing it. I don't remember it. And I just said, oh, I got to continue this, because it was very healing. And even though Bob gave the answers, I was going, yeah, but, and he would answer it. And then after a while, my sense of humor started kicking in and my writing skills started kicking in. And I said, oh man, I'm writing a book. And I wrote this book, and it's about Bob and Bernie. As I said, Bob is God and Bernie resides in the negative zone. Everyone has an inner Bernie within them and an inner Bob. Your inner Bernie is the part of you that lives in the negative zone. And we all experience that inner part of ourselves in negative ways throughout various stages of our lives. Regardless of race, religion, social status, it doesn't matter. Everyone has an inner Bernie that consumes them throughout parts of their lives. But your inner Bob is the antidote to the firewall of incessant negativity, toxic beliefs, and fear that your inner Bernie insists is real. So the conversation is Bernie winds up in this place and he meets this being and who's called Bob. And Bob teaches Bernie common sense strategies and shifting habits on how to turn his life around. And I think the most profound thing that happens is at the beginning of the book, and I don't mind saying this, is that when Bernie finds out that Bob is God, he's very upset and he breaks down and he says, "Why didn't you answer my prayers? I believed in you. I pleaded and I begged on my hands and knees. Do you know what it's like to see your friends in your circle have everything that you desire and you just don't get it no matter how hard you try? You just keep going back 5 more steps. I believed in you. You never answered your prayers." And Bernie breaks down into an emotional disarray, and Bob lets it go. And then Bob said, "I did answer your prayers, but you pray with the same negative attitude that you have about your entire life." And he goes, "What do you expect? A miracle?" And Bernie says, "Well, isn't that your job?" And Bob says, "Have you ever heard the saying, God helps those who help themselves?" And he says, "Yes, I've heard it my whole life." He goes, "Apparently you don't know what it means." He said, "I can only do for you for what you're willing to do for yourself. I answered your prayers. The seed possibility was there all the time, but you squashed the seed possibility with your own negative inertia from taking root. And you did it over and over again. And yet you expect me to turn your life around when you're not willing to do anything to yourself." He says, this is the law of attraction in action. What you think is what you get. What you say out loud is what you ask for. And you've been asking but nothing but negative stuff, and the universe was answering you. And that's what the book is about. So he tells Bernie how to turn his life around.
Amazing. You know, you told that story. Do you want to know what image came in my mind, Steve?
What?
Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz wearing the red ruby slipper.
Yep. My favorite movie of all time.
Right. She had the capacity all the time to click her heels. And that's, when you were telling that story, that's exactly what came in my mind, was an image of Dorothy. So, Randy, this is your last question. What else would you ask our friend Steve Rizzo today?
Well, gosh, I wish it was more profound since it's my last one, but oh well. I love the positivity. I love the neuroscience behind it. Our daughter last week flooded her bathroom and the main floor of our house by leaving her sink on. And I thought, well, at least she didn't have a curling iron that she left on and burnt down the house, because then we wouldn't just be re-renovating, we'd be out of a house. So that I was trying to think positively. I always try to look like, okay, well, it could have always been worse.
Yeah.
But what about those like negative Nelly people in our life that, you know, the sky is always falling? How do we best deal with them? Do we try to reframe it for them? Do we buy them your book? Do we try to distance ourselves?
It's a hit and miss. I've got people in my own family that are like that. My mom and dad were like that. My mom, you know, that saying, glass is half full or half empty. She didn't even see the glass, you know, and the only thing that you could do, and you seem like a pretty optimistic person, and just say, have you ever noticed how I handle life's challenges? Do you ever wonder why I can do this and I can smile and I can see the good in things? And you might want to explain to them, it's my thought process. I will warn you that most people just don't want to hear that crap, especially from a parent. It usually takes a friend to do it. It's hard. I could motivate most people that aren't related to me, and I can inspire people, but it's hard to do it with your family members, because there's something innate in them. They just don't want to hear it. But what you can do is that you could say, hey, you know, I'd like you to watch this. I'd like you to listen to this. You might want to ask them to go to my YouTube channel. Just look at these guys' short little clips. You might want to read this book. You might want to, if they do, they do. And every now and then you just might want to say, I'm willing to help, but you can't help anyone who's not willing to help themselves. Every psychiatrist will tell you that. Psychologists and psychiatrists will say to the patient after a while, you've been here for quite some time and you're not willing to do anything to help yourself. And you might want to find someone else that you can relate to, because I'm not cutting it for you, but you're not doing your part. And people have to do their part. If they become aware of what they're doing to themselves and why they're doing it, just by looking at short little video clips. And the thing that's engaging with what I do is there's a lot of funny stuff there too. This way they're not looking at someone who's preaching, but someone that they like. That's one of my strategies when I speak to people. My first 5 or 10 minutes, I do nothing but make them laugh. And then they get to like me, and because they trust me. You could actually see the shoulders. You could feel the energy. I'm very good at feeling people's energy. Now, here's a guy that's going to hit them with really heavy crap, but it doesn't feel like heavy crap. And plus, if you're having fun while you're learning, you're going to ingest more information. It's going to be a part of who you are. So tell this person, whoever it is, to look, especially younger people, look at the funny stuff first. Watch this guy, and then they get to like me, and then they might, who knows, something might click. But there's no guarantees with that, Brandy. I wish I had a foolproof. Everyone has to make their own heaven or their own hell,
Amen.
So Steve, so the last 2 weeks have been pure hell for that young lady. Her and her husband, they went to Puerto Rico, been dreaming on the vacation. They go to Puerto Rico. So first her husband comes down with a severe bout with COVID, and then she's having to take care of him. Then she comes down with COVID, and she's not a good patient. I will just tell you, okay? She knows she has a nursing background, and then she comes home. Then we get a note that Haley has flooded the house, and it's like this is just going down and down and down. But she's made it through today, even though she's facing these challenges. Look at that smile on her face. And also, did you see what Mr. Roydhouse posted about you, Brandy?
That's very nice. Thank you, Chuck. That's a big part of why I left nursing, was to have more time for my family. That's a part of my story, is I left because I was working so much and I was missing field trips and missing things that were too important to me.
Yeah. So Cheryl, what's your last question for our friend Steve?
Well, Steve, I agree with a whole lot of what you said. I had opposite parents. I loved my mother. I want to say that first, but my mother was as negative as God has ever created. And
I'm sorry, you haven't met my mom, or she passed away a while, but
both of mine are gone too. My dad was the positive side. My father would never let me say I can't do anything. So I took his side of the road. And the one thing I kept hearing over and over, and we've heard it several times today, you got talking about the common sense strategy. Now, some days my negative Nelly side wonders if there's any common sense left out there. But true.
Yeah,
but
I agree. That's why you need them. Just because it's not out there doesn't mean you can't use it, though.
I do try.
I'm from New York, and I don't hold back. I hit people in the back of the head sometimes. I go, snap out of it.
Well, my mouth enacts slightly before my brain, so you can say I probably came from that era too. But the common sense strategy, can you explain a little more about that? I've got just enough to be curious.
We all have them. We all have common sense strategies. As a matter of fact, Conversations with Bob has almost all the strategies, and it's making a conscious choice to enjoy yourself during the process of whatever it is you're trying to achieve. How to shift your focus and way of thinking to what's working rather than fixating what isn't working. Common sense strategies on how to pray. Your mindset for praying is crucial. The mindset you have before prayer, during prayer, and after. A lot of people don't realize that prayer is not pleading. It's not begging. It's asking with an unshakable belief and faith that the prayer will be answered somehow, some way, in time, not when you expect it to or how you expect it to. You know what I mean? It's a mindset. There, Bob says to Bernie, he goes, "You're amazing." He goes, and Bernie goes, "What do you mean?" He goes, just a while ago, a couple of days ago, you were praying for peace of mind on that particular day, and there you were cursing at everybody in traffic. What do you want from me? You got to be in control of your own emotions. So there are and they're innate. Common sense strategies, we're born with them. Every one of us are born with them. It's just that we get so caught up in the crap of life that we're not aware that we can tap into these strategies, these alternatives on how to deal with the severity of life. There's another strategy where some people experience the death of a loved one, and one of the strategies is letting you know that suffering is okay. In fact, you're supposed to. It's part of the healing process. I mean, Brandy, as a nurse, you know that. The biggest mistake someone could ever make is to say, well, I got to be strong. And if I start crying, I won't stop. Well, good. Keep crying and don't stop until you stop. Suffering is part of the healing process. It's a gift, just like laughter is. To deny it is denying yourself a crucial part of yourself, which is a part of the healing process. But having said that, suffering may be unavoidable, but just suffering can be avoided. And these are all part of common sense success strategies. There are points, and it's different for everyone, where you could finally see that even though this part of your life is missing now and it's gone, whether it's financial loss or the loss of a loved one, you'll start noticing that there's other things are evolving, and it's your job and responsibility to notice these other things that you find precious. And, I know someone who lost their son not too long ago, and it was horrible. It was devastating in a car crash. And she allowed herself to go through it. But as she said to me, is that the saving grace was she had 2 other children that were a lot younger than her son. And she realized that she still had them, and that her emotional stability and her lifestyle from this point on will be crucial to them, because she also was well aware that sometimes the children that survive the death of a sibling feel guilty that it wasn't them. You know what I mean? And she knew that. So she made that conscious choice and let her children know, listen to me, there are going to be times when I'm going to break down. There are going to be times when your brother's birthday is going to come up, or somebody's going to say something that he would have said, or you're going to say something that's going to remind me, and I'm going to lose it. And so will you. And it's okay. It's okay. You're supposed to do that. But always know that you still have each other. I have you and you have me. You have your father. And you're following me on this? It's a whole thing. It's the dichotomy of life. And we all have these little strategies to adjust to life's unfortunate circumstances like that. And it's all based on choices. Your entire life is based on every choice that you make. And for every choice that you make, there's always a consequence. But unfortunately, most people get so caught up in their emotions, and they refuse to let the hurt, or they take it out on life, or they become bitter and they become angry, not realizing what they're doing to themselves, making a very challenging situation worse than what it has to be.
I don't think we've just done an interview, Randy and Cheryl. I don't know about you, but during the last hour, so many mental images have flown through. I'm not going to call this an interview today, Steve. I'm going to call this, you just put the 3 of us through a tremendous coaching class, and you have given us all thought processes that we will use with our own clients moving forward. You brought some really unique thoughts to the table. Brandy, what's your thoughts after? I told you before we started that you asked about Steve, and I said he's going to bring a unique insight into what you're going to hear today. Did he hold true to what I told you he would deliver?
100%. Yes. This will go down as one of my top favorite interviews or coaching classes.
Okay, so that's she's rating you right up there with Mr. Morshire when she says that, because Mr. Morshire blew her out of the water also.
Cheryl, I love Glenn. Glenn is a great guy. As a matter of fact, I got to share a little story with you before Cheryl continues. And by the way, since you're calling this a coaching class, I will send you the bill. But anyway, and you're laughing. Mm-hmm. Okay. Last week, a week and a half ago, Glenn and I were speaking at the Rock Your Life seminar in Dallas.
Yeah.
And Glenn and I just got to know each other for those few days. And when he heard me speak for the first time, when I got off the stage, it blew me away. And I laughed my ass off. He got down on his knees and he was bowing like this. It's like, are you kidding me? Get up. But I love him. And I told him, when he talks, people listen. So I'm sorry, Cheryl. It's your turn to.
Not a problem. You did show me something. Well, let me rephrase. You showed me a lot of things that I will use, but I have a bad case of dry humor. And a lot of times I would draw it back because it didn't seem like the place. I'm beginning to wonder if I missed the right places. So I will revisit that from now on.
Don't ever lose it. However, I will tell you guys something. I know, I guess you're short on time, but if I would like to share this with you. Sometimes my humor being gets me in trouble. Okay, I'm serious. And I realized that when I was a kid. When I was a kid, especially if I was being reprimanded by an adult or an authority figure, and there was a punchline there, I swear to you folks, I was going to say it and I didn't care about the repercussions. I'll never forget the first time I lied to my father and he was angry. I was 10 years old and he looks at me. He said, "What kind of idiot do you think I am?" I said, "Well, what are the categories?" And just when I was in California, a couple of years ago, I told you I was in California. I can't help myself. I had a cop pull me over and he goes, "Didn't you see that stop sign?" I said, "Yeah, I saw it. I just didn't see you hiding behind it." So he goes, "Are you drinking?" I said, "Are you buying?" He let me go without giving me a ticket. He was
Jerry,
laughing.
I need to add something since he said that.
Yeah.
In 1978, I got my one and only ticket. There's a long story that goes with it. But the policeman was standing there, and I was going like 95, and I can't say anything to my grandchild. I was going 95 in a 55, which could have got me my license gone. But anyway, he kept looking at me, and he finally said, "Are you not going to cry?" I said, "Would it help?"
That's perfect.
So he wrote, he had to give me a ticket because I was clocked as the person in going after high pursuit, but he took it low enough I got to keep my license. And then he gave me a parking space at the Speedway in the highway patrol section for the next 2 weeks because that's where I was headed.
That is cool. I think the most trouble I got in, and I will end with this, was many years ago when I was younger. My friends and I went camping through New England, and then we went to Canada. And on the way back, you got to go through customs. Now, you know how tough these guys are. There are big signs. This is not a laughing matter. So it was my friend's car, but it was my turn to drive. So we pull up, and this big custom agent comes by. He taps on the window. I roll it down. He goes, "You have any weapons?" I said, "What do you need?" He said, "Get out of the car." It ripped the whole car apart. My friend was so ticked off at me. I couldn't help myself. Can I say something before we end this?
Certainly. We're not rushed. If you got anything to say, I welcome you to say it.
I listen. I told you folks, and this is the hard truth. My mission in life is to get the message of this book out. As a matter of fact, book 2 is almost finished, and I would appreciate it if you folks, everyone listening, could be a part of this mission and get the message out. And if you can go to yourinnerbob.com, that's the website for the book, yourinnerbob.com, and order the book. And if you like it, and I know you will, just tell your friends about it. And you could even see excerpts on this website. It's a great website. You'll see videos and excerpts on what the book is about. And like I said, my mission is to get this message out. It's such a simple message, but I think more than any other time in the history of this planet, people need to know that they're going to be okay. And it's up to them. It's their life and they're in control. And I promise you, and this is a promise, after you've read this book from cover to cover, you will realize how much power you have over every aspect of your life. Just look at the reviews on Amazon. It's only been out a month and a half now. So just look at the reviews. So that's all I have to say. As Forrest Gump would say, that's all I have to say about that.
So again, that is www.yourinnerbob.com. Am I correct? And I got the book. Yep. I got the book several weeks ago, and I've been reading it on Sunday afternoons, which is a time that I read a lot, Steve. And it's, like I told you, it's been very, very interesting. And today, Steve, what you've shared with these people has been above and beyond. The way you look at things, your outlook, your history, when you look at it, and for you to take the time out of your day to join us today, it's just been a phenomenal thing. I've gotten to listen to you on our Grow Live broadcast, our coaching calls on Thursday night. And it's just like I told him coming in. I said, this is going to be very similar to a Glenn Moore shower presentation with a comedic side to it. I said he's going to add a little comedy into it. But Brandy, were you happy with what you heard today?
Yeah, and I totally see the Glenn part of it.
Yeah, now, Cheryl, were you happy? And was it a good hour for you?
I think you, knowing me, knows it was very good.
Yeah, and as far as her sense of humor, I call it a warped sense, Steve. So you'll know she's got a little bit of a warped sense of humor.
Well, I was saying to myself, I can get along with all of you, but the warped sense of humor is perfect for me. So
that's it. So anyway, Steve, once again, thanks. I'd love to have you back sometime. I'd love to. I think you've got a message here, and like I said, your conversations with Bob, Brandy, you need to get that book. I think it's got some really neat stuff. So I want to thank you for joining us today here.
My pleasure.
Thank you,
My
sir.
pleasure.
So thank you for joining us today on the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network. My name is Jerry Eisenhower. You have Cheryl, you have Brandy here. Reach out to us at any time. Change is a difficult thing. It's very difficult. And sometimes you just need somebody to talk to because you got to make a decision in life. Do you want to make go through the pain of change, or do you want to remain in the pain that you're in? Which, Steve, I think that's kind of been your message today. Would you agree?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And you know what, man? I love your format. This is really, really a great. I mean, the way you go from one person to the next with their comments, and each one with their own question. It's just, this was so easy to do. It was so easy, and you allowed me to say my thing, and I so much appreciate that.
Okay, well, stick around a minute, folks, and we'll see you next week on the next broadcast of the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network. And we so much appreciate you joining us. It is an honor, it's a privilege, and it's a